real talk though, in Flint, I love the I love the when table design contest. So AE, what's in the works on that? We need horns on the hoodie, and we need an actual table.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
horns on the hoodie. That's a question we have to answer after we do the first you heard segment. And as far as the when table contest, well, first we got to see some good NFTs, get those out on the vote, and then we can think about doing a table contest. I'm open to it. Like if the community wants it, if the DAO votes for it, then we have to go for it, right?
oh man, yeah, we gotta we probably should do a virtual table. I don't know. We can start shipping people tables, but we'll see.
I mean, yeah, we can start shipping people tables if they pay for the shipping fees.
But alrighty. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll probably have more people join throughout. But thanks to everyone getting here on time, and we'll get it rolling. With that, we'll do a quick little around the horn. Everyone say what's up. I'll toss it to you, A.
Yeah, hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in with us again.
Hey guys, it's Wally. Happy Friday.
Hey everyone, happy Friday indeed. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, we got football right now, don't we, Wally?
Yeah. I mean, England made it through, so we've got another match tomorrow. So fingers crossed. We're a rubbish team, but I always have hope.
All right.
Oh man. Alrighty. Well, this week wanted to just kind of like take a little bit more of an educational approach to just kind of understanding L2s, explaining what they are, and sort of how they relate to yAxis, because I know that's like a pretty hot topic right now. Everybody's hearing like, oh, Arbitrum soon, Optimism soon, other scaling solutions soon, and obviously soon TM. It's they all work on Ethereum time where it's like something's supposed to release, and then it's few months to whatever time from there. But obviously should be coming soon. So what are they? What are L2s? Kind of how do they work? And sort of how do they relate to yAxis? So hopefully learn something today. We'll keep the herd pretty big brained in terms of being up on the DeFi landscape, and being just well informed in general about the space. So with that, I'll kind of kick it off with a little discussion of like generally, what L2s are, and and how they work. So basically, like layer two solutions, they take so right now, like transactions are put into a block on Ethereum, like on chain. So everything's done on chain, and this basically just moves that whole process off chain. So blocks are produced off chain, and transactions are essentially batched or rolled up, which is why you hear that term a lot, like optimistic rollups or ZK rollups. So the transactions are essentially batched or rolled up like off chain, and that allows for greater throughput because it's not being done on chain. So it greater throughput means faster, lower fees, etc. All the things that people are kind of demanding for on Ethereum and helping Ethereum scale. So by batching and rolling up off chain, they're then kind of confirmed and validated by the Ethereum layer one to ensure integrity, but then you get the benefits of that greater throughput, which is faster and lower fees. Today we're probably going to focus mostly on, so the L2 space is pretty big, so we'll probably focus mostly on like optimistic rollups, since that's like Arbitrum, Optimism, and those are like the nearest term to be kind of deployed. And given that sort of ZK rollups are another topic, and they're like more complex and kind of further away from mainstream, like earliest is probably like September. There's some isolated use case of ZK rollups today, but broad-based use later on. So we'll talk about ZK rollups in a future episode. We're going to focus mostly on optimistic today. So what is an optimistic rollup? We'll start there. So like I was mentioning before, these transactions are batched or rolled up, off chain. So basically, when those transactions go to be validated by Ethereum, in an optimistic fashion for the optimistic rollup, Ethereum essentially treats that batch of transactions as if it's legitimate until proven otherwise. So it only rejects that batch of transactions and doesn't validate, doesn't confirm them. It only rejects that batch if anybody on the optimistic rollup, anybody monitoring the chain submits a valid claim that the transaction is fraudulent, which is a fraud proof. Essentially, like the transactions are, innocent until proven otherwise. So that's sort of the optimistic name. So, on optimistic rollups, basically a single party is designated as the block producer and the transaction processor. So this sequencer, you call it, is the one that's sort of batching and rolling up those transactions in an off-chain and fashion and producing the block before being sent to like layer one for validation. So basically, the kind of the other participants on the optimistic rollup network, so outside of that sequencer, they basically serve as, like, we'll call it referees or police or however you want to call them, that can like call a foul on the sequencer. Basically, if the sequencer is acting in a malicious way, or they're basically acting in a fraudulent way, the other participants can essentially trigger a dispute resolution process, so they can file a dispute, or submit a fraud proof, basically. And so basically how that works is that whole dispute resolution process ensures that the transactions are going to be, let's call it, honest or not fraudulent. So essentially the security of the rollup is based on the idea that one participant on the entire rollup is honest. So as long as there's one honest network user on the entire thing, they submit a fraud proof, the rollup will process transactions correctly, because any fraudulent activity would be identified. And there's also a monetary reward for submitting a correct fraud proof. So there's incentives to do so. There's incentives for honesty. Basically, greed and market incentives will drive honest outcomes. And kind of, we'll talk a little bit real quick here as to like how that differs from, let's say, like a Polygon. Because obviously you've heard a lot about Polygon, which is a side chain. Side chain's not the same as an L2. So basically, a side chain requires a simple majority for validation. So you basically need more than half of the validators to agree on something. And so that basically requires more validators to be honest. Whereas the optimistic rollup only requires one participant on the whole network, not even just a validator, just one participant to be honest, based on that incentive scheme. So set up to be pretty secure in that sense. And then also the transactions are then validated, confirmed by Ethereum layer one on an optimistic rollup, so that you retain that security of Ethereum, whereas on a sidechain like Polygon, you do not. And then I know there's a lot of like topics here and words being thrown around, but just talking about that sequencer that basically rolls up and batches those transactions together. So the difference between Arbitrum and Optimism, which are like the two main optimistic rollup kind of layer two solutions that everyone kind of throws around, that you've probably heard a lot about. The main difference between those two, or not main, but one key difference between those two, is in how they treat that sequencer, and the basically the liberty and freedom they give the sequencer in ordering the transactions while they're being batched. And Arbitrum gives less liberty to the sequencer and is more focused on, we'll call it, a fair sequencing service. That's how they sort of brand it. So it's like a differentiator, I guess, to be aware of. And so we'll talk a little bit about like the pros of optimistic rollups and optimistic layer twos. We'll also talk a little bit about the cons as well. So we talked at the jump that obviously the greater throughput through that whole batching process done off chain, allows for greater speed and lower transaction cost, which obviously greatly reduces user friction. It makes things like high frequency trading on Ethereum actually become feasible and cost effective and reasonable. Now most people don't conduct Uniswap transactions every day because trading at a high frequency just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when transaction fees are, a relatively high percentage of the amount of the trade. And then also with optimistic rollups, you retain, like I mentioned before, you retain the security of Ethereum because everything's being validated by the Ethereum layer 1, as opposed to like Polygon or other side chains where you do not. And another pro is they're very EVM compatible. So like it's the Ethereum virtual machine. So basically it's very easy to port over apps and other infrastructure from Ethereum layer 1 because everything's been built on kind of the Ethereum layer 1. It's very easy to port those over to these optimistic rollups. And on that side, Arbitrum is slightly more so, slightly easier to kind of port things over than Optimism, but both pretty easy in that sense. So obviously is great for users and the speed of getting this stuff deployed and getting it out to the user base and letting you all kind of mess around with these new applications, which obviously eventually feeds into yAxis and the ability to farm those pools of capital. So we'll talk a little bit about the cons of optimistic rollups. So the biggest con is withdrawal time. So basically, like I mentioned before, you have that sequencer that produces the blocks, and then you have the participants that can create fraud proofs if the sequencer is acting fraudulently. And then that can lead to a lengthy dispute resolution process. And so that causes a 1 to 2 week withdrawal time. So basically, kind of, you basically have 1 to 2 weeks. So you kind of need to wait while your funds are kind of in the withdrawal pipeline, just in case there's any dispute resolution process to kind of guard against that and allocate time for that. So, but I guess we'll kind of talk a little bit about that withdrawal time, and obviously it's a major drawback. Given you have a great user experience while you're on, but then trying to get off, obviously that user experience is a bit of a hurdle. But the nice part about optimistic rollups is basically the data availability is really good, and you'll basically know you'll know if there's a disputed batch of transactions, how that's going to resolve well before the 1 to 2 weeks is up. So as a result, like there's a lot of protocols and other solutions and other kind of participants that are working on providing instant liquidity, so you'd instantly be able to access your money that's sort of waiting in transit because they know how that dispute's going to resolve already. So they're happy to give you instant liquidity on your assets because they know it's coming. It's just in a week or two. So basically, the solutions being built out there will greatly solve that user experience issue on the withdrawal side. Again, while you're using it, fantastic. Only downside is the withdrawal side due to that dispute resolution process. And the only other major con is liquidity getting fragmented, or money or your digital assets being fragmented or kind of siloed on each layer too. Like, because due to that kind of withdrawal process is you have money on you have USDC, Ethereum, etc. on Arbitrum, and you want to participate in ETH layer 1, or you want to participate in Optimism, and it's tough because it's sort of siloed and fragmented on that little like walled garden. There's going to be a lot of solutions, I think, that are sort of built out around that, and one of them being that sort of instant those instant liquidity solutions while your assets are being withdrawn. And then another one is a lot of applications will probably build for multiple L2s and multiple scaling solutions and just sort of serve as bridges. We saw Stani, he kind of put out a tweet and teased this week, I believe it was, how like Aave could potentially connect these liquidity pools and help solve that problem, where a user could deposit collateral on Ethereum layer 1, they could actually borrow on Aave on Polygon and then pay back the loan on Aave on Optimism. So connecting those three separate places all with one application. So Aave potentially providing a solution there. Obviously, it's not to market yet. We haven't seen it, so hopefully, hopefully that actually works. But these are the types of things that there's gigabrains behind it, and there's problems to be solved, and they're going to solve them. So it's just sort of generally speaking, I think at a high level, it's exciting to see rollups, and layer 2s so close, but and they bring a ton of benefits, and they solve a lot of the major problems of users being priced out or high frequency transactions not being possible. And so they solve a lot of those things, and then sort of the trade-offs and cons, we'll let the gigabrains and kind of the Ethereum developer community sort of take it from there and solve the additional problems that sort of continue to come up. So definitely an exciting time. And then kind of the near-term landscape is the Arbitrum mainnet beta for developers, so developers only, has been live, and the public mainnet was actually already supposed to be live, but it's been delayed and should be kind of any day now. It's like I said, on Ethereum time. You know how these things work. And then Optimism, expected at some point this month, but again, could be delayed. So just keeping an eye on both of those, as those are kind of the near term most promising solutions. And so for there, I mean, I hope you guys kind of learned something about the mechanics and how they actually work, and some of the benefits and drawbacks, and other things that are sort of to think about as you're looking to maybe use them and better understand DeFi and understand the landscape. And sort of with that, I'll turn it over to AE, who will go over kind of what some of this means for yAxis.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Summer. So the main advantage of layer 2s, as we mentioned, is that users benefit from higher throughput. So they have lower transaction costs and speedier transactions. So main advantage of that is that it opens up Ethereum to a wide array of new users who are currently priced out of Ethereum, and they're currently using Binance Smart Chain, Polygon, or centralized exchanges. And now they can also access DeFi on Ethereum. So that gives us the opportunity to deploy vaults on these layer 2s without prohibitive transaction costs and engage with all these new user bases. So not just lower transaction costs, but also lower transaction times. What that means is that there's less user friction. There can be more volume as well. For example, arbitrage trades, they become profitable at lower amounts because there's less gas eating into your profits, and smaller users can also more quickly trade as an alternative to just holding. And they can also compound more often. Those are things that we saw on Binance Smart Chain and Polygon in the past. So we can expect that to happen again, Arbitrum and Optimism. What that means is that there's more trading volume, and so there's a higher base yield on platforms that we're going to be using, like Curve. And more base yield means our platform becomes more profitable. Another advantage is that we have our Meta Vault right now that when you deposit stablecoins into, you get a tokenized vault deposit called MVLT that represents your share of the vault, and that accrues value over time, because every time we harvest, your MVault becomes exchangeable for a higher amount of stablecoins. Now these tokens, they appear in your wallet when you deposit, so you can actually take them out and bridge them to a layer 2. And when you do that, you can trade that MVault token or future canonical vault tokens with other users. Like, you can establish a liquidity pool on the layer 2, for example, Optimism, against, for example, USDC or another stablecoin. And then if you're a larger user, you have to pay the transaction cost on layer 1, of course. But smaller users can now go on a layer 2, buy your tokenized vault deposit, and access that same value accrual without having to pay the layer 1 transaction cost. So again, we're making DeFi more accessible that way. Another advantage that we have with layer 2s, that's what Summer mentioned that Aave was building. Stani was teasing it. One issue with layer 2s is that the bridges, when you use them, they take a long time to finish moving your funds from one layer to another. And one problem with that is that we prioritize security and we want users' funds to be available at all times. Well, when your funds are in a bridge, they're not available. They're stuck there until they end up on the other layer. That's not something we want. Now, if we can use a solution like Aves in the future, it's possible, and we can, for example, deposit our Link or ETH or BTC in onto Ethereum Aave, and then take out the deposit on another layer without having to worry about users' funds not being accessible. So that's one way we can play delegated strategies. Currently, our position regarding layer 2s is that we just wait it out. We see what happens. We see how the public launches go. We see if they run without any issues. And then, of course, they also have to establish their own healthy ecosystems with DeFi protocols for us to be farming, because we're in the top stack position. We need that liquidity to be there in order to take advantage of it. And that basically means that we'll be the last ones to deploy. First, we have to see the base layer protocols deploy. Usually that's Curve and Aave. They tend to be quick on that. SushiSwap as well. And then potentially yield aggregators like Yearn or StakeDAO or Convex if possible. And then when they're all there, when there's plenty of liquidity, plenty of volume, and we can take advantage of that and build on top of them. As for our preference, our devs, Transfer and Godliest, has voiced the preference for Arbitrum because, as Summer mentioned, it's really easy to port over contracts that are written in Solidity like ours, because you don't have to actually change anything. You can just basically copy and paste it. That's how we look at layer 2s. Do you have any closing thoughts, Summer?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect, and I think it's definitely an exciting time, and hopefully, like I said, Arbitrum was kind of already supposed to be launched, but hopefully they kind of get off the ground publicly, and start seeing those pools of capital get developed, and something for us to kind of look forward to. And for now, we're just sort of in a wait and see. We got to make sure that this stuff actually works, and I would imagine there will be kinks and roadblocks along the way. So we'll let kind of the folks over at Arbitrum and the base layer protocols kind of iron that out, and then we'll kind of come in at the top of sitting at the top of the stack, which is sort of a nice position to be in, because you kind of let the kinks iron themselves out and let the basically get to ride the winners essentially. So be in a nice position there. And like I said, TNC has already expressed some preference for Arbitrum. So obviously these are ideas and things that are a bit away, and obviously you have to be patient on it, but it's relevant. It's in the news all the time. So we wanted to make sure that people understood kind of basically what this technology is, what it does, and what's sort of coming up in the near term. And then we'll see those ecosystems develop and see those base layer protocols eventually, get deployed, go public, start attracting capital, and then that's where the opportunity opens up for yAxis. So, and just to kind of wrap up that portion, like, overall, I would just say, if you're looking to learn a little bit more about this stuff, I would plug Hasu over, at Deribit Insights and, other places, the Uncommon Core podcast and stuff. He does a fantastic job, always providing like pretty objective research. He's a crypto researcher. So, and all the people over at, Deribit Insights, they really do a great job. So, would recommend, looking over there if you're looking to learn a little bit more and learn a little bit more about the Ethereum ecosystem in general. So, with that, we'll move to some of the questions that were asked ahead of time, and then some of the live ones. So Zemus asked, first off, happy to have you back, Z. We missed you last week. But Zemus asked, what's everyone's favorite type of pizza? God help anyone that says Canadian bacon and pineapple. So big Hawaiian pizza hater. I personally would have to go with buffalo chicken, but we also looked like we had a lot more better cultured responses in the You Heard channel. A's given some Italian thing going. He had some Italian thing going on there. I didn't even know what was going on with what he said, but sounded fancy, sounded good.
Come on, man, that's a standard pick, man. That's Portuguese.
And then Mr. Mister's got some thoughts on the Hawaiian side.
Oh no, I just wanted to chime in with my favorite type. It happens to be Hawaiian, Canadian bacon and pineapple. How could you not love that? Love you, Z. Thanks for gracing us with a question. But sweet and savory, like they go hand in hand, right? I don't know. Don't hate me. Don't hate me for liking Canadian bacon and pineapple.
No, to each their own, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. had to come in and defend his
Yeah, I
his
just had to.
Hawaiian pizza. This is Hawaiian pizza tribe. We went from the details of optimistic rollups to Hawaiian pizza real quick. This is now a pizza review channel.
That's all we do.
But 2DA asked about more use cases for holding the yAxis token. We had, I believe it was week 9. We had a pretty, I hope was thorough episode on the tokenomics and what they are today, improvements coming in the near term in Era 2, and then eventually sort of long-term vision. If you saw anything in there that you didn't think was covered well, or you would like covered additionally, or have additional ideas as well, feel free to toss them in Discord, forum, etc. I'll give a quick TLDR. It's basically in Era 2, we're looking at gauges, which will enable Vault users to, they're basically incentivized to hold, stake, and lock the token to earn higher yield on their Vault deposit and direct emissions to their desired Vault. Basically, it attracts long-term aligned capital, something that's been super successful over at Curve. Even though the CRV token has an extremely aggressive emission schedule, they're still able to kind of hold and actually accrue value to CRV even in the face of that emission schedule. And then also coming up, we have a little bit more scalable and easily manageable strategy management in Era 2. So with V3, strategy management is going to get a lot easier. So we're going to have opportunity for more active governance and more revenue. And then also the connections to institutional capital sort of enabled by the Casimo X backing, poised to help grow TVL and revenue for stakers as vault governors as well. Rembrandt asked, L2, basically L2 when, Polygon. And, I think we kind of got to a lot of that above, but, if you don't think anything was covered or have additional questions, feel free to let me know. We talked a little bit about, prioritizing Arbitrum for a variety of reasons. And, one of them being the EVM compatibility and, another being the security and also the things about the sequencer and the fairness of transactions as well. So those are some things, behind that decision, or our approach. And we'll see how it all develops. And luckily we can, like I said, from our position, kind of sit, wait, let them actually deploy, let the pools of capital sort of exist, and then we'll kind of ride the winners from there. And then so with that, we'll get to questions that were asked live. So Big Poppy said, Big Poppy's back. Asked some fantastic questions here. One about adding vaults or support for CRV directly. That's something that is definitely feasible. I think the goal is to start with the vault assets that have kind of been advertised, but then grow from there. Particularly because, let's say for example, we wanted to run a CRV, it's super easy to do that. Given that it's already supported by Aave. So, plenty of opportunity there. And then obviously, Convex as well being a place to deposit CRV and even Yearn. So that's definitely feasible and in the works. Just nothing I guess specific today, but not, definitely not out of the question. And then asked about a preview of the upcoming release. We could see it, can try to connect with the team and see what we can do about that.
Oh yeah, we can. I mean, Mr. is here. We just need his permission to share it.
Oh, true.
Way to put me on the spot, guys. Yeah, we can definitely share some sneak peeks as we get closer.
Some little teasers.
Little teasers.
Yeah. And also, just go back to the last question that Papi asked. You mentioned that some other projects are hoarding CRV right now. Yeah, that's definitely true. Because you need a lot of CRV locked up in their gauges to be able to boost your APY. Nice thing about yAxis is that we don't have to do that. We can just sit on top of them and take advantage of their boost to still get the max APY. So we don't necessarily have to hoard Serum.
Yeah, for sure. Great point there, AE, and that's kind of something for us to look at moving forward, especially like I said, as strategy management gets a lot easier in V3, you can start looking at things like convex, etc. And then Big Poppy, last question he asked was, can we just acknowledge that even if Princess Bobby didn't win, he's our favorite anyways, for sure. And then Crypto Force One asked the hood horns. Sorry, I actually missed that question earlier, but I'll sling that your way.
Yeah, of course. The hood horns, I think they were fantastic. That's what we really loved about the first design. But of course, it's a community vote. We're going to have to see which one eventually wins. So if you haven't voted yet, guys, make sure to check out the recent announcement and make sure to head over to Snapshot to vote. Then once we have a winner, we can consider to add horns in their own style if the winner isn't the first design to their final design that we actually get produced, so that it fits the rest of the design. That's what we're looking to do.
All right, good stuff. And then Crypto Force One, other questions about like the new webpage refresh. Yeah, as we kind of talked, we can get that get some teasers out there hopefully within the next week or two. Sort of kind of leading up to launch. We'll leave that to the sort of web team to make sure that's ready and ready to be shown publicly. So much feedback on the pineapple on pizza. I personally not a fan, so maybe I still have your respect, Poppy. But Mr. looks like you're down bad.
Buy the dip, I guess.
Misam asked, does Arbitrum have a coin or a token like Polygon does? I don't believe so. I'm pretty sure if you see
they
that.
don't. No, they don't. And then actually, people always go into the Arbitrum Discord and they just spam them and say, "When's the token going to be released? Did I miss the airdrop?" Always, no. There's no token. No, there's no Optimism token either. But usually these projects do launch a token down the line, so you guys do keep your eyes open for that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, it might not be a bad idea to be a user. You get the nice little like a Uniswap type airdrop or 1 inch type airdrop.
Yeah, but to make it clear, you just need ETH to transact on those layers. You don't need any other type of token like you need on Polygon.
Alrighty, so we'll wrap up. We'll wrap up probably here, considering we just got past the half-hour mark. But I'll take the last question, Bobby. Yeah, not Bobby. Sorry, Big Poppy. Long day. So take the last question here, Big Poppy. Yeah, the stuff A you mentioned did sound really cool. The Big Poppy goes, I got a promotion. But yeah, no, it is pretty cool, and obviously excited to get that released, and that chat sort of support feature will be cool. And then Big Poppy mentioned again. That's funny. Big Poppy mentioned you mentioned web team, kind of how large their team. I guess we have more developers than 4 or 5. Just basically one major sort of web dev on that side, but Mr. can provide a little more color there if he wants.
Yeah, they're not core team, but yeah, we do have folks helping out with different kinds of development needs, and web development is one of those. So we have 2 really helping us right now. But yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and then Mr. is obviously also heavily involved with that process, and then from an app like front end standpoint, that's obviously get Guda's wheelhouse. So alrighty, well, great questions this week. Had a few laughs. Good way to close out the week. So appreciate everyone taking the time to join us, and we'll see you all next week, and have a good one. As always, any questions you didn't feel were answered well enough, etc. Feel free to ping or DM as needed. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
later, guys.
Thanks. Bye.